Welcome to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life, a podcast to discover and celebrate the many ways that our city is using mindfulness in our practical daily lives. Welcome to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life. And today we have as our special guest, Carissa Kranz. Carissa is a former professional ballet dancer turned super lawyer, turned vegan lawyer, and the founder of Bevetch International. I actually met Carissa at the Seed Food and Wine Festival in Miami 2 years ago now. And when I met Carissa, I thought that I was speaking to an angel incarnated, honestly. I felt, why did I not know this? Why did I not understand this information? And how come no one in the world seems to know what this is? And I had to meet you. And I also met your dad, by the way, right. And amazing man. And so I wanted to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much. And I wanted you to tell me your story and the viewers to hear your story from your own mouth, to share what is it that inspired you to do all that you were doing. I look at you and I'm, how is she managing all of this? And I was just so inspired by you. And so thank you for joining us on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. How am I managing all of, I don't know if I'm managing all of it, but I think when you have a passion about something and you feel inspired, you're driven to do whatever it takes and you're not going to stop until it's done. And that's pretty much what drives, I think, any successful person that is purpose driven. Okay. And I think that when something is our true life purpose, there's a passion behind it and something behind it that will drive us and to get it done. So for me, I was born and raised vegan. My mom had a vegan pregnancy with me. And I always lived my life just being vegan and being me. But I grew up in a time where veganism was not at all common, cool, or even considered healthy, like it is now. And I would actually go to school and I'd get made fun of, and I was told, how do you get your protein? How do you get your calcium? And I just dealt with it because I never wanted to eat an animal, and that was a choice I knew that I was going to stick with. Even though I was born into that lifestyle, I was very conscious that this was also my choice. And then I didn't really focus on what other people did. I just did me. And then as I got older, and by the way, I never broke a bone in my life to this day, and I never drank milk except for my mom's breast milk. And, I was a professional ballet dancer, so I achieved great athletic ability being vegan. Yeah, I went to law school at Berkeley, so I don't think I suffered in any kind of intellectual way by having a vegan diet. And as I, continued to be a lawyer basically in this world, you start learning things. Your mind changes. You start looking at things with a critical eye. And for me, I started out as a prosecutor, and then I worked at Greenberg Traurig, which was a big global law firm, and did securities litigation. Then I did plaintiff's work and criminal work. And it wasn't until I started to get really confident in my abilities as a lawyer and able to look at things critically and realize that, we don't have to necessarily operate within the system of laws that are human man-made laws that we think we should operate in. We must respect the laws and we must use the laws, but laws are meant to evolve and change, and they're meant to evolve and change as society and civilization changes. So I'm not saying you should go out there and break any laws, but I'm saying you should learn the law, because if you know the law, then it's on your side and you can use it to make arguments that make sense. So when I started owning my veganism because I realized, it was becoming cool and popular and the thing to do. And all sorts of news is coming out now about how meat and dairy actually isn't good for you and it doesn't need to be on the food pyramid and it actually is bad for you. And there might be government warnings on products now about how bad it is for you, which to me is similar to the tobacco industry.
Exactly.
It's really no different. I started to come into my own and say, you know what, I can be vegan and I can be proud of it and I can be outspoken about it. And that's when I started to really look at it critically, like a lawyer would. And I started to realize that there were no real laws in place defining veganism, that vegan claims are like the Wild West. Anyone can say they're vegan by what standard? And, it goes so much further beyond labeling laws. But I think I started out by learning that alcohol is often filtered through animal parts. And that was shocking because I had been drinking wine and I thought I was vegan. And, God knows I probably had many wines that weren't vegan.
It started. It's something people would have thought of at all.
I think people now still don't know. And I think it's an educational battle, frankly. It's about getting the word out there. It's about doing podcasts like this. It's about doing media. It's about doing articles. So it started with beverages for me. The business didn't start with beverages. I immediately trademarked 2 vegan symbols. That's what BevEdge does. We do international vegan certification. We have 2 global trademarks. They're worldwide trademarked, which means we can certify vegan all products or just beverages. We have a specialized beverage logo, and then we have one for all other products. And what's different about us is we are a law firm issued vegan symbol. We're the only law firm in the world that manages a vegan certification process. So in essence, we have made vegan certification a legal process while we are out there trying to define a vegan legal standard that is globally standardized and legally binding. And it's certainly a tall task.
Tall order, yes.
Yes, it's a lot. It's a lot but our goal at BevEdge is that as we define standards and as other, organizations and jurisdictions and government entities may define standards, that our vegan standard at least will always operate and fit in within the strictest of standards.
Mm-hmm. What have you seen in terms of standards versus what other, because there is no, legal
standard. So there is no standard, right? So right now I would say any vegan claim on a product without any certification, you can't trust it because 1, it hasn't been verified, and 2, there's no set out standard by that company of how they're defining vegan. Other vegan certification programs may define vegan differently, but at least they have a standard set out somewhere in their literature on their website that they are following in order to pass that product or certify it. And what makes us different is just that we're a law firm, and lawyers by nature are regulators. So I think that brings credibility to the certification process to have lawyer oversight. And I think what really also brings credibility to the process is lawyers can not only do the certification process, but we can be part of advocacy and lobbying for an international global standard, which is what we're doing.
What have you seen in terms of standards that is, if somebody doesn't know what the standards are, what are some of the things that you've come across that if somebody understood that would be shocked to know?
Well, in terms of labeling and ingredients, I think, lots of, sugar could have bone char, some natural colorings or natural flavorings could, the government doesn't require that to be defined. It's considered a trade secret and therefore it's protected. So the consumer doesn't have true transparency. The FDA and the USDA do not require disclosure of ingredients that are less than 0.5 grams per serving. They allow the supplier, the company, to round down, which means if it's 0.45 grams of sugar, say, per serving, not in the whole packet, per serving, then they can round down when in essence, that really adds up. And then they still get to claim sugar free. So current labeling laws, though there are clauses saying truth in labeling laws, and those are real legal terms, truth in labeling laws, really lack truth right now. And so the government considers ingredients that are less than 0.5 grams per serving, quote, insignificant ingredients, which by a vegan standard would not be insignificant.
Right.
And they consider any chance of cross-contamination where trace amounts of animal parts could end up in the final product to be an incidental ingredient and therefore insignificant and not worthy of being disclosed. And, you just go through the process where suppliers think that they're vegan, and then even they realize they have a source ingredient that has an animal derivative or a dairy derivative. And it's a process, and I think it's a positive process, because we have many times counseled companies to change that source ingredient in order to become vegan certified so they could pass the process. And that's a positive thing and a move in the right direction, because we are then forcing suppliers to change their habits so they don't lose their major accounts. So it really is a domino effect to achieve the same thing that maybe someone would be trying to achieve by being outside of a slaughterhouse. It's just another approach to do it.
And because actually what you're able to do as a law firm is you're providing them, not only you're letting them know why it's not vegan, because they may not have thought of all these processes. You're coaching them in that process, but you're also able to coach them into where to go or who to work with in order for those products. Because that's one of the things when I had heard your presentation at the festival, that surprised me the most is that I may think that what I'm making is vegan, but I don't know the source of all of the ingredients that I'm adding, if that is a vegan product. So something as simple as what you mentioned, sugar, may not be vegan, and it's not something that the average person would think about.
No, and that's actually, so here's an example. And I'm not going to say names because I don't want to part of the benefit of applying to us is we are attorneys. So we try to give rise to some kind of attorney-client privilege. So companies aren't afraid to apply to us, because we're not here to out them. We're not here to expose trade secrets. We're not here to hurt them in any way. We're here to help them and help them transition and hopefully certify them so the consumer has confidence. But one positive thing that I saw happen with a sugar company was we had someone apply for certification about a year and a half ago, and they didn't pass due to the sugar. And they are now reapplying. They've changed their sugar ingredient, and the sugar supplier that was supplying the bone char sugar now has changed their practices because they lost that account. And now their sugar statement says for people, it's not a no bone char statement. It's a partially no bone char statement. It's basically it defines batches. So if you have this batch of sugar, there's natural charcoal, which is a disguised term for bone char. But if you have this batch of sugar, it's vegan. So, positive.
It's a step
positive
in the
change.
right direction.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think it's incredible. And what is your experience in injury law? How has that contributed to what you are doing now with Bevege? How do you feel it has shaped you?
Yeah. So I think doing, plaintiff's work, you are protecting the rights of injured people, and you are taught to become an advocate. You're taught to think, you're taught to write, you're taught to fight and to get results. For me, injured people, it doesn't end there. All animals are injured victims as well. They just don't have a voice. And I wanted to extend my compassion for justice to all sentient beings. And that goes beyond just injured human beings who may have been injured in an accident or wrongful death type of a case, which is horrific. But the laws need to extend to protect animal rights, vegan rights, human rights. It shouldn't end. And the laws are intended to do that, by the way. That is the intention of the law. It's just that the scope of the law has not been drafted to solidify these additional rights, which in time it will, just like it has in the civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movement, an animal rights movement, and a vegan rights movement is no different. It's just a matter of time. We just extended rights, to gays, the gay rights movement. LGBT. I mean, I was in law school at Berkeley working at the California Supreme Court when Prop 8 was going down. And in a very short amount of time, they're a protected class, a constitutionally, federally protected class, where it was a state-by-state decision. Same thing with animals right now. It's a state-by-state decision on whether a pet is considered a family member or if a pet is considered property. It's basically segregation, the way animals are classified. You either have pet status or you have animal that's slavery and food status. I mean, eventually these things will evolve to create a more equal, just society, and we'll never have peace on Earth until it does. But it's a process of evolution, and there's people like you and me that are just here to try to get the word out and try to touch as many people as possible without getting overwhelmed with how many people need to be touched and spoken to. But it's a process of just, every person you change is a win, because that person will change someone else. So
what do you think that us as consumers, me, the average person, listeners of the podcast, what do you feel that we can do to contribute into making this change toward vegan law happen faster? How can we contribute?
Well, I think in terms of consuming your food, products, beverages, you should be writing to your suppliers and manufacturers asking for the vegan certification, specifically the BevEdge one, because that's what we're trying to make legal and legally binding and accountable. But, by writing, it creates a demand. And by creating a demand, people, it's all about, in the end, products want to increase sales. So they want to speak to their consumers and they want to speak their language. So if consumers would get on board with that and demand it, then they're keeping companies honest and they're keeping their products honest. Likewise, if the consumer does make these demands on the companies, then not only are the companies forced to change their habits, but the consumer should look at it like an economy. If they're spending money on a product that's not vegan certified, they're not sure where their dollars are going and what it's supporting. But if they're spending their dollars on a vegan certified product, then they can be sure that the dollars spent and earned by that company are going to go to buy more ingredients for that vegan product. It's going to go towards, vegan use and a vegan economy. Same thing at a restaurant, right? If a vegans should try to patron the vegan restaurants, because the dollars spent is going to go at that restaurant to get more vegan food, and it creates a vegan economy. Whereas if you go to a steak restaurant with friends, yes, order the vegan vegetable plate, but understand that you're still paying for that plate at the end of the day, and that plate is dollars earned for the steak restaurant to keep their doors open to continue serving steak. Right. So it's just, you have to think about consequences. So the consumer really, I think, can help by becoming more conscious, number one. Number two, thinking about where their dollars go, because in the end, this is an economy-driven society. It's all about, the meat and agriculture industry exists because of greed. So if our dollars were spent in ways that were supporting an alternative, alternatives would exist. And if you're supporting vegan certified products and, demanding the BevEdge vegan certification mark, then you're supporting vegan companies who are trying to advocate to get vegan products to be more compassionate, to take any kind of animal harm out of the process.
Yes.
So, you know, we need voices out there, really. You need to think about how your voice is being heard and how your dollars are being spent. I think that's key. Have a voice and be conscious about where you're spending your money, because we all work hard for our money. We all need money to live. So once you make your money, how are you spending it? If you are between two products and one has the BevEdge vegan symbol on it and the other one doesn't and just claims to be vegan, buy the one with the BevEdge vegan symbol on it, because that one has been verified vegan and certified vegan. So that means the products, the suppliers have also been researched, and then you know you're supporting a vegan assembly line.
Yes,
basically.
exactly. What would you say to businesses that, you know, maybe considering it, or they obviously are aware of the trend that's happening, but they may have some fear in terms of finances, obviously, for them to become certified. But I'm sure you've approached that. How do you approach that with them, with these businesses?
You know, cost really isn't an issue. If they looked at it and looked at our services, I think they need to see the value added in terms of marketing and in terms of consumer transparency and having a trusted product. Vegan certification, by us at least, I'm not sure about other companies, but by BevEdge, we have on our website actually a cost calculator that companies can use. And they have the choice of certifying per product or based on the revenue of their company. And they get to choose whichever one's cheaper for them, which, so like if it's a company that makes, we have this right now, a company that makes about $10 million a year, they only wanted to certify 2 products. So their fee is $500, but if they went on the revenue model, it might be $3,000. But they got to choose the $500 route and go per product. Likewise, if there's a new vegan company out there that's starting up and they're really not making money and they might be making like $15,000 a year, you know, we're going to work with them for like $150, you know? I mean, the reality is, you know, yes, I'm a lawyer. I have my own law firm. I've made millions of dollars doing personal injury and normal human law. And it is a tough business to shift gears and do vegan certification as an area of law and do attorney time and attorney work and staff it for, you know, $150. But we're focused on the big picture. We're focused on the long term. And, you know, we don't want to break the bank of companies. We're basically pro bono on our services because it's passion driven. And we want to create a system of transparency. And hopefully in the long term, we will make as much money as we used to make as a quote normal law firm based on, you know, volume of products rather than making one company suffer financially. Yeah.
You know, you're such a passionate and determined person, and I'm just so honored to meet you and to speak with you. I wonder, for say in the next year, right? So 2020, what is your vision in terms of vegan law and vegan certification?
Well, I mean, I'm staying the course with what I'm doing. And we've had some developments, I think, since you saw me at the Seed, Food, and Wine Festival speak about a year or so ago. In January and in February, we struck a deal last year, well, this year, but this year's almost over, with Control Union, which is the #1 global one-stop shop for certification programs worldwide. And they have over 100 programs, and they have more than 70 offices around the world. And they chose our vegan symbol to represent in their more than 70 offices. And they're currently translating their documents and training their different teams. And my hope is that in 2020, we could really be scalable because of that new relationship. Also, I have a book deal with vegan publishers, and the title of the book right now, unless something changes, is going to be Vegan Law, Know Your Rights. And it is a book that, yes, addresses vegan label law, but goes far beyond that and gets into vegan law in general about what the law should be, what it will be, what it's lacking, and it addresses different issues that the vegans might face, like vegan family law. If you're going through a divorce and you have one vegan parent and one that's not vegan, and the child's going back and forth, who's the controlling parent? Vaccines for the kid if it has an animal product. Who gets to make the controlling decisions? Patients' rights. The right to have, while you're in the hospital, to have vegan food and vegan medicine, and the right to have your power of attorney and your medical proxy honored if you lose capacity and you can no longer speak for yourself and you have dementia, to the right to continue the life you've committed to, even if you don't have the capacity to still have that active decision. It's going to go into the rights of vegans to have access to vegan options in places of public accommodation, just like, Americans with Disabilities Act. There should be an Americans Vegans Act, the ability to have a vegan option in hotels, restaurants, bars, schools, prisons, universities. We should be able to go anywhere and have a fair vegan option, not a, joke, piece of broccoli on your plate.
Exactly.
Then it'll go into animal rights, and it'll go into veganism and whether or not it should be a protected constitutional class. Like, for example, if someone eats a hamburger who's Hindu and Indian, that goes against their culture and their religion. So if they wanted to bring a lawsuit because they were given real meat when they ordered the vegan meat, they would have an actual cause of action defined in the law right now for real ascertainable damages. If a vegan brought the exact same action, they would not have necessarily the same results unless it traveled up to the Supreme Court and it was ruled that way. And then we define the laws that way, which then set the precedent and the standard for all cases going forward for vegans. Mm-hmm. But right now, the law for vegans is you don't even get emotional distress damages because we're not a protected class. We're not a religion. We're not a national origin. We're not a race. We're not a protected class. Mm-hmm. So I do think that will change as we gain more and more momentum and we end up having food in fast food restaurants where cross-contamination is going to be more likely, and there's going to be more cases of vegans being served non-vegan food by accident, and there's going to be more litigation and claims, and this will become defined. So the vegan law book, it'll go into the labeling laws and how we need to define a vegan legal standard as well. But the book overall, I think, is actually a real thought leader book, which is will require a lot of thought and research into the issues that are arising, which are fairly new issues, which, by the way, are not new for me because I was raised vegan. My parents divorced when I was 5, and my parents both were not vegan. My mom was vegan, and my dad was not. And my dad felt like I wasn't getting my protein and everything I needed to get because that's what was known back then.
Exactly.
So he felt like it was misparenting by my mom. And, when they're having a custody battle, that was, his argument. And, it ends up being fine, joint custody, 50-50, both are great parents. But, it's a tough thing. Like, you have a child as a minor who decides. So these are all issues that need to be addressed. With me, I made the decision to stay vegan when my parents got divorced. It was my, moral compass to protest anything that my dad thought was healthy for me in terms of meat and dairy. And for me, it was a moral decision. Like, I didn't care about health. I wasn't going to eat an animal, like, period, end of story. So I was raised vegan for health reasons by my mom, but I stayed vegan because morally, I won't eat flesh of another being. Yeah.
Carissa, I just admire just your love for animals, your compassion for animals and for people, as I learn more about you and get to know you. And I know that with such passion, I think it's almost palpable for everybody that's listening and joining in. And so best of wishes for the next year. as it's right around the corner.
Yes.
We're all on board here as consumers to support you, as well as in any way that we can, just to speak more about what you've shared with us. So thank you so much. And I hope to have you on the show again soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
To find out more about vegan certification and what Carissa Kranz and her team at BevEdge are doing to elevate the vegan standard, visit them at beveg.com, beveg.com.